Okay, so hello everybody. My name is Troy Hamner. I'm gonna give it a couple of minutes just to see, get everybody in here, and then I'll begin. So just give it a couple of minutes. We'll see people show up. Hello, hello. My day is good today. It was a busy day. I'm currently in my surgery rotation. It was a long day of clinic, so we saw a bunch of patients today. I got my first dose of my COVID shot today, so that's good. I'm glad I'm able to get that going, get that started. So yeah, thank you very much. So I'll just give it a couple more minutes and then I'll get this show on the road. Where's my rotation? Right now I'm currently in Houma, Louisiana, which is about an hour away from New Orleans, further south actually, right down the bayou here. It's a quiet place, but it's a great hospital and a great place to learn, that's for sure. Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. It's really something great, and I'll definitely be talking about my clinical experience here in this session here. So give it one more minute here. Okay, I guess got a couple people here watching, so I'll go ahead and begin. And yes, thank you. Um, I'll be talking about that award and sort of how to be successful in going to Caribbean school and specifically MUA during this session. So that'll be later on. So I'll go ahead and begin. My name is Troy Hamner. I am a semester 3 medical student at MUA, and I'm currently in my surgery rotation down here in Houma, Louisiana. Um, I'm going to go into sort of my background here real quick. I went to undergrad in Virginia, just a small Division 3 school. Um, I majored in philosophy, and I was on the school soccer team as well. I played college soccer. Uh, I've always been a competitive athlete growing up, uh, playing soccer pretty much all my life, and that was my main goal going in college, being able to play at the college level. So that was a lot of fun. Um, and then going on to how I sort of got into MUA and how I heard about it and sort of my um, transition from college to MUA. So my experience might be sort of unique compared to other people. The way I found out about it was because actually my mother is a teacher at the island. She teaches in the pre-med program, which I did. So that's how I found out about it. Throughout undergrad, I kind of had an idea I wanted to go into medicine, but it wasn't necessarily set in stone early on. So I kind of tried a couple different things. I tried to go into business, and then I ended up majoring in philosophy. So I truly have a sort of non-traditional background when it comes to uh, going into medical school. I didn't even apply to U.S. schools. As soon as me and my mom started talking about this gateway per se, this direction to go towards, sort of made up my mind that this is what I wanted to do, and that it was, sort of set from there. Um, so um, then basically, how I'm going to do this is I'm going to talk about my experience at MUA, sort of the daily lifestyle, what school is like, you know, sort of what the classes are like, the teachers. Then I'm going to talk about more of the sort of life outside of school. So what you can do on your downtime and things you can do on the island that, you don't have to be studying all day, right? And then I'm going to be talking about sort of how to be successful in med school specifically MUA, how I was able to be successful. I think it's very important and it's very doable to be successful at a Caribbean school, just as any other, U.S. student, especially in today's sort of world. And I'll be talking about that. And then finally, I'll be finishing up just talking about sort of the clinical life right now. Since I've been in a couple of rotations now, I'll be talking about that. And then I'll be answering questions at the end, okay? So let's talk about sort of my experience at MUA. So I started off in the pre-med program. And when I was there, it was 2 semesters. I know now it's 1 semester. Um, and my experience with the pre-med program was something that really sort of got me going headstrong into the med program. And what I mean by that is it gave me time to sort of build what I need to be successful throughout the program. I think there's so much that goes into trying to be successful in medical school rather than just trying to, you know, sort of learn the knowledge itself. I think you need a very big sort of global approach, sort of mentality wise, physically wise, to be very successful throughout medical school. And so in pre-med, my goal was during this time, it was about 8 months, was to truly just sort of, ask myself what it takes to be successful, And what I learned is, you know, being successful was very sort of universal when it comes to what it takes to do that. I think what I did can be applied to pretty much anything you want to be successful at. And so what I mean is in pre-med, well, specifically for medical school, is just having discipline and having passion for what you're doing. So I kind of discovered quickly, uh, just learning through textbooks and just through the classes right away that, this is something that I'm really fascinated about, learning. I can remember, going back to pre-med one, just learning about, just what are cells, what are the different types of cells, everything has a purpose in medicine. And to be, able to try and understand what those purposes are is was kind of a humbling experience for me and something that just sort of drove me to keep going and trying to learn as much as I can about that. So so during pre-med, I got a good taste for basically what was going to be taught in medical school, but sort of at a sort of a slower pace level, like sort of an introduction. So one of the big things about medical school is just having discipline and being able to study for long periods of time. So, I remember the first couple of weeks, man, I could barely study for, a couple hours a day, and I would be tired, and I was being tired in class. I was like, okay, how do I get this down? And so those 8 months was really trying to hone in on that schedule and that sort of stamina of how to study for that long. And, I kind of like to think of the brain as like a muscle in the sense that you need to find ways to work it and train it. And you will get tired and it does hurt sometimes. Your brain gets really tired and it hurts, but that's the only way it's going to be able to get stronger. And so that's what I really focused on in pre-med. And so, sort of segueing onto um, going into the med program, Med 1, I took off right away starting Med 1. I mean, it was very exciting going into Med 1. I got to meet a bunch of more students. The classroom sizes are, I think, the perfect size. Not too many students, but not too less. You get to meet a bunch of people. You get to be a part of the class experience. I think um, sort of MUA had teachers that, at least for me, were very sort of inclusive. And if you showed interest in class and sort of if you participated, then the professors would catch on to that and they would, ask you questions more and sort of, promote you to, you know, go harder and, keep just, learning as much as you can. And, the teachers were always there to talk to you. And if you have any questions, a lot of them were really good at explaining things um, that if ever you needed to, ask about. Um, and so in Med 1, I think one of the, sort of cooler experiences that a lot of people liked and it was fascinating was the anatomy lab that was offered in Med 1 with the anatomy class. So in anatomy, you do, a couple hours in lecture, but you also, a couple of times a week, we went to the anatomy lab and we actually got to look at cadavers, not just look at them, we got to, participate in dissection. And, this first couple of times, of course, it's kind of a weird experience to see a dead body right in front of you. Um, but it's an experience that I know not a lot of other Caribbean schools get that chance to, from what I know. That like sort of first person experience of being able to dissect it yourself, and then being able or getting tested on sort of the anatomical features and getting that visual, representation of what these structures actually look like. You know, I think that goes well, hand on hand with anatomy and surgery as well, because that's what I'm interested in doing. I'll talk about that a little bit later. Um, So yeah, so that's med one, and then throughout the other semesters, I was able to sort of just keep on stacking up. Sort of what I would focus on is how to perfect my schedule every semester. So I think this is a good segue into sort of my next topic that I want to talk about. This is sort of a big topic. Um, it's basically, how to be successful at a Caribbean school, how to be successful at MUA, and to the level that I was able to be successful. So, sort of how I started all of it was from the get-go, I had a goal to get the highest step one score that I could, possibly get. And I remember, back in pre-med one when, you know, we were just learning about, what is the step exam, and we didn't even know like what is a good score, doing research, like what does, oh, certain specialties require a certain score. Um, how do I do that? Is it even possible for me, go to a Caribbean school to get that type of score? And there was a lot of doubts at the beginning, um, how I would be able to do this. Um, but me and a couple of my good friends who also did really well, we just started going at it, and I think the biggest sort of determination of how you can do well on that exam. I know it might not matter, or some people might not think it might matter now because since it's not scored anymore. It's basically pass fail, but that's not necessarily the case. Um, you still want to do really well on that exam because all that material that you're taking from basic sciences is what you use during your clinical years. So if you don't know that material, you're not going to do well during your clinical years. So that's just a little side note. But going back to sort of how to do well, um, you need good habits. You need structure. Um, so MUA is really good at providing that structure for you. I really take credit to the type of schedule that we had, going to each semester. So basically, we would learn about these topics, a couple topics for a couple of weeks, and then we would get tested. We'd have a test day where we take all of our tests in one day, and then it sort of just cycles back to new material, tests, new material, tests, and when you get to the end, you take your final exam. And I thought that was really good because if you want to have a long-term goal, like step one, which is 1.5 years away or whatever from when you start, so to have a long-term goal, you need to be able to um, progress, and you need to be able to have short-term goals in the making to make sure that you're in the right direction, I guess you could say. And so what I would do is, take these exams every week and then see how well I did. And if I did really well, I'd be like, okay, what did I do to do well on these exams? And then, or how can I even do better? How can I do better than I did last time? And so that would implement new things, try new things the next week, and you know, and maybe I get a better score, or maybe I get a worse score. It's okay. Don't do that, or shouldn't go, out too much, or something like that. Um, so, so then, by the time I got to Med 5, I had really honed in that strategy and sort of that pace that I wanted. And how I knew I was doing well was, at the end of each semester, you get to take these board exams, these national board exams that every medical student takes, not even just Caribbean students, but even US students, right? And you don't necessarily need to pass these exams to pass the course for the semester. They're kind of weighted into your overall grade. but and sort of I think some students take that for granted. They don't try to do too well on those, but these I think they're very underrated in the sense that you need to use these exams to show yourself that you're on the right track, right? So if you're not passing these exams, then how are you going to pass, step one or the comp exam, when it's all sort of ran by the same people, right? So it was kind of common sense for me, and it was sort of a good way for me to judge myself on how I was able to get such a good score. So from the beginning, I was just gonna say my goal was to get above a 250, and it seemed impossible then. But by the time I got to Med 5, I was like, okay, how it was more of like how much more higher can I get above 250? That's how real that's how confident and I was able to get, and especially in like today's society or today's like medical school world, I think going to a Caribbean school shouldn't have any setback at all on getting a good score or doing well in medical school. And what I mean by that is if you take sort of this, um, all these outside resources that I use throughout basic sciences, it's basically, of course, it's good to learn in class and stuff, and the teachers are wonderful at teaching you things, but I was using the same resources that, say, a medical student at Harvard was using, as a medical student at, any prestigious medical school was using, right? We were all using the same resources. We were taking the same sort of board exams. So, it kind of thought to me, if I can learn this material from these resources and I know what they're talking about, I'm doing well on these exams, then that was how I was confident in the fact that, this was something that was possible, um, going to MUA and going to a Caribbean school. Um, so I'll try to sort of transition to a new topic. I might try to go back to that if you have questions or something popped up to me. But I kind of want to, get away from school and just talk about sort of the life at MUA outside of school, right? That's very important as well if you want to have, sort of that good overall mentality and the rest, of course. So, so MUA is just such a, or not MUA, but Nevis, in general, is a very peaceful place. It's, if you think about today's world and just the fact that how loud it is and everything going on today with COVID, politics and just everything going on, it's so loud and it can be very hard to concentrate, and especially in middle school when you need to concentrate, right? You need to be able to learn so many things in a short period of time and be able to make these small connections in a short period of time. You need, the most focus that you can get, right? And so I think I gave a lot of credit to sort of that atmosphere that Nevis has and that the island has to offer. I was able to just, when I got to the island, just step away from reality for a little bit. I made it my sort of, you know, my sort of palace or just place to learn about medicine. And when I didn't want to learn, I could, go to a nice beach with my friends, which I did a lot. Um, I was still able to have a lot of fun on that island. I made some great friends, friends that I'll have for life. I was able to, go get food when I wanted, or, go out with my friends after exams, grab a couple of drinks, have, you know, midnight fires at the beach. There is time for all that, but it's just the fact that you need to earn that time yourself, right? if you're doing if you did bad, on your exams, you shouldn't be partying the next day, right? It's all about that the mentality for success. And if you have it, then you can earn those times to really wind down and have a good time. It's very possible to do. Um, so I also won an award for doing community service on the island, and that was something that I found out about. The service that I found out about it was through my mom. She set me up with a this nonprofit service called Nevis Animal Speak. So basically, what they do is they help out with the sort of animal scene on the island. Um, if you notice, or this is not just Nevis in general, but I think a lot of Caribbean schools have a problem with sort of the pet aspects of dealing with animals. There's a lot of just wild dogs, wild cats, just kind of roaming around, reproducing at you know too high of a levels, and they get stranded. And this not-for-profit really tries to focus on creating a better environment for pets and sort of teaching the natives really how to care for pets better, and offering veterinarian services for animals on the island. And so that was really um, a cool experience to be able to help with, since I love pets and I've had pets all my life. So I think it's nice to be able to do something like that, to get community service, and it definitely helps with your overall image, as a medical student. But that's something that, needs to be taken, it's not your number one priority on your time at, MUA, right? That's something that you should consider if you're doing well already. And that's with anything that you kind of do on the island, right? Doing well should be number one, and sort of everything just plays off that, how do I do well? If you need a lot of rests to do well, perfect, that's what you need, and that's what you sort of have to do trial and error with yourself to be able to sort of see that. Um, so, um, so next, I'm going to talk about sort of my clinical life right now, and what that transition was like, and kind of what I'm sort of learning and what I'm doing. Um, so I started back in August. I'm on my third rotation right now, which is surgery. I've done psychiatry, and I've done internal medicine. And man, I've really enjoyed it so far. It's been a great segue from basic sciences, and to be able to use the knowledge that I learned throughout basic sciences. And now it's like all about applying that knowledge and how to actually treat people, right? Um, so that's been really great. And I want to take a point to mention that MUA on the island offers a clinical skills course, and this was something that for me was sort of something that I kind of took for granted on the island. I think a lot of students do, because it kind of just it takes more work to learn, because you what, what really matters during your first 2 years on the island is passing the comp, which is all about basic sciences, learning science and stuff. And you got to learn about clinical skills too. It just adds more to do, which can seem like it can get in the way, especially for me when I loved learning about science and all that stuff. But looking back, I can definitely say that what I learned throughout the clinical skills courses on the island was helped make this transition into the hospital a lot more easier. Um, I feel, a lot more comfortable talking to patients every day, and, going through the process of interviewing them, what type of questions they ask. I feel a lot more comfortable, with the physical exams, and just, I didn't think that at the time, but now it's like, okay, I can see I can see why that was helpful, and I'm definitely grateful for that. I learned a lot from that as well, and you should definitely, if you're on the island, if you're at MUA, if you're thinking about it, don't take clinical skills for granted. Um, so um, that's kind of all I have on the top of my head right now. If anybody has questions, feel free to ask. I see there are a couple here right now. I'll answer. What resources are you using for the clinical aspect? Tyrone. I can answer that. So, yeah, the resources that you use, uh, it's kind of it's kind of the same. I mean, it's kind of like the same sort of process, um, except it's kind of on your own schedule, right? When you go in the basically when you go in the hospital, it's like you're going to work. Like you got to do um, what the residents tell you to do. You got to do a bunch of stuff. Sometimes you have time to study on your own, but it's mainly just like going to work and you got to do stuff. And so studying is kind of really like on your own. You gotta kind of make your own schedule. So basically, what you want to use is, of course, a question bank. A lot of people use UWorld, which is awesome, but I've heard great things about Amboss for specifically clinical skills and specifically for the chef exams. So I've been using that throughout so far, and it's been really, really great. The questions are awesome, and I've been doing really well in the shells too. And I take a lot of credit. I give a lot of credit to Amboss for that, and online med ed videos too, and basically just still using Anki, of course. Um, okay. See, okay, what does an average day look like for you? How many hours in class and how many hours studying after class? That's a good question. So I guess I'm guessing you're talking about how things were like during my time on Nevis. So basically, class started at around like 8 a.m. if I remember, and usually class would usually last around six or so hours. Um, and I would try to be, very attentive in class, try to get as much studying as I can do during class time. And then, by the time, 6 hours is up, my brain is fried and I need to take a break somehow. And what I would do is, usually take a nap or, you know, go to the gym, staying active physically is, I think something everybody should do and sort of implement into their schedule just to be, I think just to fit that broad sort of, you know, mentality that you want. You want that full picture, right? You don't want to spend too much time just sitting down and studying, right? Because then, I don't know, you start getting sick and uh, your mind just starts getting cloudy and it starts becoming a negative, right? So you don't want to study to the point where it starts hindering your studying and learning the material. So I would use sort of working out or running as sort of a way to just, stop thinking about medicine, stop thinking about all these little details and just sort of clear my mind, stay really kept me healthy and it just helped restart me for the day, restart my mind, and then I was able to study for about, on a good day, you study for about getting 4 hours of studying in a day, and then that sort of just, builds up over time. The key, is just to maintain, right? You don't want to cram. Studying over short periods of time for the long run, right, is a lot better than cram it all at once. And that's something that you just kind of have to trial and error in yourself. Where's your sweet spot, right? If you think it's your sweet spot and you're only, you're not getting the grades you want, then it's obviously not your sweet spot, right? And you need to actively try to change that. And, it's a process. It hurts sometimes. There's so many times where you feel, excuse me, where things get really hard. It's not, once you have the schedule you want, things won't, go your way the whole time. You're going to have times where your motivation is just, through all the way down to the ground. You want to cry, you miss your family, all sorts of things get in the way, right? And you need to be able to find a way to bounce back as quick as possible, because and realize that these things are going to happen. I'm not going to feel great, every day. I'm not going to feel like studying some days. How do I get myself back to that mentality? How do I get myself back to that, you know, thought process, or, you know, that successful way of thinking? Um, that's what you want to try to do. Um, just, I'll wait a couple minutes, see if anybody has any questions still. I'll be happy to ask. Or I'll be happy to answer, I mean. I'll give it a couple minutes. Okay. This is. Hmm. Okay, what kept you motivated while you were on the island? Did you study 7 days a week, or did you give yourself any breaks? Yeah, right. So that's a great question. That's a very important thing to ask. I I would try to study, 7 days a week. Um, so basically, how it works, right, is um, you have exams like every 2 or 3 weeks. So um, right after exams, um, most students, take that day off, or they go out to dinner, and and you easily transition your way during that following week. You easily transition your way back into that sort of study schedule, and then when the weekend comes, you don't have to study as hard, right? Get a couple hours in during the weekend, and it's solid. And then the week when the week comes prior to exams, when students usually hammer down, I would study a lot more, you know, get a lot more honed in into, or get more focused while I was studying. And the weekend before, it's just even more. And then come exam time, of course I'm exhausted, and then I just take that whole day off. But so staying motivated, I think the biggest thing for me was knowing that um, just what type of like career I wanted. I know I wanted a sort of difficult specialty to get into, specifically surgery. Specifically maybe possibly orthopedic surgery, which is a very competitive specialty, and you need good scores for that. And so, whenever I would be down, whenever I didn't want to study, I just, think to myself, okay, like, come on, Troy, like this is, I have these goals, and um, I need to get, you got to make it a necessity. That's what it was for me. This is what I needed to do, You gotta do it. Study for, 30 more minutes, 15 more minutes, 10 more minutes. Can I get 10 more minutes in, you know? And I think what kind of builds, it's kind of circular, right? So you kind of get into that mentality and you do well. And that's sort of like, okay, I did well and I feel good about it and I'm learning a lot and I'm loving what I'm learning. And sort of just that kind of builds my motivation and I build a passion from that. And then it sort of just feeds my hunger to keep studying, to keep going, right? I think it's important for people to have to, especially in medicine, to build sort of this. It's what people call, intrinsic motivation, right? There's intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Extrinsic being like, okay, I want to be a doctor because it looks cool on TV, or I want to be a doctor because I'll make a lot of money one day. And with people who have that type of mentality, it's really hard for them to sit down for 6 hours at a time and study medicine, study anatomy, study neurology, right? Because they're not doing it for the fact of wanting to learn about these things. They're doing it for these sort of superficial goals. I'm not saying it's impossible to do well with these mentalities. You just have to work a lot harder, and it's not going to be. It's just going to suck. Studying is going to suck for you. Like for the most part, sometimes for me, studying was hard, but a lot of times, man, I could do it because I loved it so much. I love learning about it, right? And so that's what. If you don't have that going into medicine, you need to find a way to become inspired by medicine, right? Watch a documentary. There's tons of good documentaries out there about medicine, doctors and sort of the type of people that they are. And yeah, that's kind of how I stayed motivated. Um, have you heard anything good about Boards and Beyond for step 2, 3? I haven't heard anything about Boards and Beyond. Um, um, yeah, Boards and Beyond for step 2 or 3. I know it's kind of a working process. A lot of people just use online med ed for step 2, and I think it's worked really good for me. He's pretty good at he has pretty good videos. Um, is it difficult to make connections in the medical field, especially coming from a school on an island? Um, I don't think so. I haven't had much experience so far making connections since this is only my third rotation, but I have had the sense that Caribbean students are treated fairly, in the clinical environment. It's pretty much, you know, just comes down to how much you know as a student, right? Your background of what medical school you went to or whatever. In the end, it doesn't matter. It just comes down to, can you put out during that day, do you know what you're talking about when you're trying to diagnose this patient, um, why would I order this test? These things kind of help you build that sort of respect for yourself as a student. And with that being said, there's plenty opportunities to talk to uh, the attending physicians, that you get to work with. There have been wonderful ones that I've worked with so far that just are great to talk to, and I think it's something that going to a school from the island shouldn't be a problem if you show that you're a good student, right? Being a good student is kind of a universal, and yeah, it doesn't really matter if you go to a Caribbean school if you're doing well. Hope you're doing well, Camila. All right, if there's any more questions, I'll give it a couple more minutes. But I know it's been a while now, so. Yeah, you should definitely look in the Amboss, and um, it's really awesome. And if you, I think if you go to their website, uh, when I signed up for them, they were offering like these scholarships, which were basically just like discounts to their Q bank, and I was just like, hey, like, I don't have enough money right now. Can you can you help me out with the scholarship to your Q bank? They were like, yeah, sure. So they gave me 50% off from their Q bank, which was already cheap to begin with, but it was even way cheaper with that. And so, yeah, it's been really good. But you can't go wrong with your world too. And I'll probably be using that closer to step two time. I'll definitely be using that still. All right. Well, if there's no more questions, I guess I'm going to sign off here. If it, if there's any, if you guys, if anybody else has sort of more direct questions on sort of how to be successful in medical school, what resources I used, if you want me to go more in depth to my schedule, um, yeah, feel free to send me a message. You can, give me a friend request on Facebook. Just type in my name, Troy Hamner. You should be able to find me, and I'd be glad to go into more depth on questions like that. I know it takes really a lot of detail, and I can't really, you know, go into that right now, obviously, but I can, and I'll be happy to do that when I have time. If any of you guys want to shoot me a message, okay? Um, thank you for hosting me, MUA. Thank you everybody for watching. Um, I hope you guys have a great day, and I hope anybody in medical school right now keep grinding. Anybody watching, thinking about MUA, give it a shot. The sky's the limit when it comes to being who you want to be, and MUA can definitely provide you with that opportunity. So, all right, bye.